by Sharon and second by Betty. I'll call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I didn't think we had to do it by, can we do it by voice? Oh, it is. Okay. My mistake. Okay. All those vote. This is to Marcia McKinney. Well, that's all right. Okay. Motion carried. Next, we need a motion on the approval of our minutes from our last meeting. Motion by Betty, second by Terry. Vote. Motion carried. Moving on, we need a motion concerning our informational items. Motion by Matt, seconded by Danny. Okay, Brian is here. Do you have something for us, Brian? Brian has nothing. Does anybody have a question for him at all? They're going great guns down. The next one would be Heather. Is Heather here? Yep. Hi, Heather.
Helps if you turn on the mic. In your packet is the projects in progress to date. If you have any questions on the financial aspect, you can let me know. I will do my best to answer them. The one thing I want to point out is we did receive the final payment or the final pay request from River City for the HHS building. It has not been processed all the way through yet. So once that is done and we have the final numbers, we'll do another report out to you on the totals for that at likely November committees.
Questions for Heather? Thank you, Heather. Okay, I know you'll cuss me, but please don't. We're going to go to a resolution. We only got 11 today, and I know that all of you are very knowledgeable in these, and some of you have had experiences working in these areas and so forth. I need a motion to start with our first one, which has to do with engineering, and a motion by Danny, second by Jim. Okay, we got Jeff up here. He's going to be real busy.
The Princeville Cemetery project, as we were in the design, we had a set agreement amount with the consultant, Terry Engineering, and when we got into the project, we realized there was a third piece of property that we needed to acquire a little bit of right-of-way from and a little bit of an easement from. So we needed to do a supplemental agreement to their engineering agreement for $8,258 for them to acquire the right-of-way and easement for the project.
Questions for Jeff on this project? No questions? Vote. Vote was unanimous. Motion on the second one, which is a speed study that we were asked to do. I need a motion on the motion by Sharon. Second by Rick or Paul. I had a kid by the name of Rick Rosenbaum that ran the hurdles for me. That's why I call you sometimes. He's one of the wounded walking. He had those one hip done, right? Huh? Oh, you had your second one done? I'd have been happy to send you a card. I didn't know you was having your second one done. Anyway, Jeff?
This is the Princeville Township portion of Duncan Road. It is a little bit southwest of Princeville. Back in 2005, the Highway Department had done a speed study in the vicinity of the Chippewa State subdivision, and the speed study resulted in lowering the speed limit to 40 miles per hour in the vicinity of the subdivision. We have a new road commissioner up there, and he asked us to look into the speed and extend the 40 mile per hour speed limit all the way up to Laura Road. So we performed the speed study and we concurred with the request to lower the speed limit. So this is an ordinance to lower the speed limit on Duncan Road between Akron Road and Laura Road to 40 miles per hour for the whole stretch.
Questions for Jeff? Vote. Vote was unanimous. You know what? I forgot to ask Marcia to vote. Marcia? You out there, Marcia? You don't, oh, is she? Okay. You know what? I saw her. It come up, and I thought, well, she's voting. And I thought, well, I got to ask her to vote. That's how dumb I am in regards to this communication business. All right. Our next resolution that we have before this committee has to do with Radnor Road. We're going to hear a lot about Radnor Road and need a motion to put this on the floor. Motion by Sharon, second by Betty.
The city of Peoria has a lot of plans for the north part of Peoria as far as a industrial park, and they'd also would like to extend Pioneer Parkway all the way to the west of Trigger Road, and also extend Walton Road and Town Line Road to Radnor. When they start doing this, Radnor Road is woefully underbuilt to handle that kind of traffic. So we are going to start the process of engineering for this. The county received $500,000 in federal community funded projects funding for the engineering of the project. So what we've been doing since Amy and I have taken over administration of the highway department is doing intergovernmental agreements with the city just for specific projects to spell out exactly who's going to pay for what. County is the lead agency on this, so we will have the majority of the money up front, and they will reimburse us. To get the project going, to get the engineering going, we are going to use a portion of our federal surface transportation and rural funds. That's an allotment they will receive every year for this project to help get with the engineering. We will upfront a lot of that money ahead of time, and then the city will pay us the half of the local match of it. And then when we get to construction, we're going to even up a little bit because the federal STR amount, we cannot invoice them for that amount and then receive funding back because we don't have a mechanism to pay that money back to the federal STR. So what we're going to do is when we get to the construction phase, that amount we use on STR, their portion of the construction is going to be a little higher than ours. It'll, in the end, it'll even us up. So it's a little confusing, but if you have any questions on that, I'm willing to ask or answer. But
Questions for Jeff? Vote. Passes unanimously. Next one has to do with engineering. They're with Radnor Road, so I need a motion by Paul, seconded by Terry.
this is an engineering agreement with Hutchinson Engineering in the amount of $1,406,834. Going back to what I just talked about, Radford Road, we're starting engineering. We did, because we're using federal funds, we had to put out a request for qualifications and remind everybody we cannot come to agreement with engineers based solely on price. We have to pick the most qualified person and then negotiate price with them. We put out an RFQ on July 16th with a submittal deadline of August 22nd. We had 6 firms submit. Amy, myself, and the city engineer and assistant city engineer reviewed the qualifications, and we unanimously chose Hutchinson Engineering as the most qualified for this project. The project will be paid for with the, as I mentioned previously, the $500,000 of federal community funded project funds, and then $320,000 of the federal STR funds. The rest will be split 50-50 with the city and us and we will use our county motor fuel tax funds. We have to appropriate the entire amount and then get reimbursed the federal funds. So it is a big ask, or it's a big chunk of our money, but we do get reimbursed. But we have to appropriate that entire amount to start. One thing I really like to stress is for federal engineering, we have to take this agreement once it passes the county board. We have to submit it to IDOT for approval. It typically takes 9 months for them to authorize the funds and approve us to start work. Back a few years ago, during the FAST Act, Section 1440 of the FAST Act allowed us to do what they call at-risk engineering, where IDOT, we fill a couple pieces of paper, IDOT will allow us to do the engineering, and then when they finally approve it, it'll be approved. But if we mess something up or if something happens to the funding, we've done it at risk, and they could say we're not going to allow you to use federal funds on this. So we do federal projects all the time. That's not a concern on our end. I just wanted to make sure with the environment we have going on these days, I just wanted to make sure the board was well aware we want to do this at risk. Unless the board chooses not to, then we can, once we approve this agreement, we'll wait until it's fully executed by the state. So, but the resolution does say for us to do it at risk.
Any questions for Jeff? Vote. Whoops. I knocked mine off. I thought I knocked it. Thank you. Voted unanimous. Our next item of business is this resolution on the bridge letting that we had. Need a motion. Motion by Betty, second by Matt.
We held a bid letting for the Princeville Cemetery Road Bridge on October 14th, and we received 3 bids. All of them were very close to each other, with a low bid going to Autobahn for $916,400. The good news is, with the amount of money we have in our TBP account now and the changes the state has made, we can pay up to 100% of the construction costs with TBP funds if we have them available, or versus it used to be 80-20. We're also getting almost $560,000 a year now versus the $145,000 we used to get. So we have $822,164.60 allowed to this project for construction. So in the end, after construction costs are all split paid, each entity, so the county and the township, will only pay $47,117.70 each. So this TBP is very helpful in this project.
Questions for Jeff? Vote. Motion is unanimous. Our next item of business is another bridge letting, and Jeff's going to handle that too. Go ahead, Jeff. Oops, I got to make a motion. I'm sorry. I know we're going fast. Motion by Terry, seconded by Betty.
We held a bid letting for the Smithville Road Bridge that is just west of the International Guard. The bridge has failing bridge expansion joints, and which is starting to cause corrosion in the bearings and the ends of the big concrete beams. This bridge is very big. It'd be very, very expensive to replace. So I know the sufficiency rating is only 88, is high at 88.8, but we wanted to do some preventative maintenance on this project before it had a much costly repair. So we held bid letting on October 14th. We only had 2 bidders. Low bidder was Autobahn at $529,000, and that was within estimate. So we recommend passing the resolution.
You heard Jeff say preventive maintenance, and that's good because they can save us a lot of money in the long run. Because if we had to go out and build a whole new bridge, I think you people are well enough versed in this matter that those bridges can cost much money. No other questions? Mine wasn't a question, mine was a comment. Vote. Okay, let's see. Motion carried. Okay, next one has to do with the speed study again, and we need a motion on that by Danny, seconded by Sharon. And we've got a new voice up here from the
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Highway Department, Amy.
Thank you. This is for Kraus Road. This is mostly in Hallett Township, but there is a portion in Medina Township. We were requested to take a look at the road between Cloverdale and Rome Road. We did our speed study analysis, and we are recommending postings to the road commissioner of 45 miles an hour, and that would be a difference from the original unposted 55 miles an hour out there.
Question, Terry?
Not a question, but this is a mix of 55 mile an hour unposted and school bus pickup at a subdivision entrance. The homeowners in the area had been trying a long time to get this done. For whatever reason, it did not. So I just want to publicly thank Amy and Jeff for finding a way to make it happen. Thank you, guys. Well done.
Any other questions? Vote. Vote is unanimous. Moving on to our next one, we have some rehabilitation to do out at the jail, and we need a motion to put this on the floor. Motion, please. Motion by Paul, seconded by Sharon. Kyle, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, from what I understand, this is a piece of pipe that runs out essentially the west side of the jail, and there's been a lot of infiltration into the pipe, a lot of soil subsistence into the pipe, so they're constantly developing sinkholes. It's right near adjacent to a big piece of walkway that leads out to the parking lot. So the sheriff came to us and asked us, hey, is there something we can do to attempt to get this pipe corrected, get the situation fixed so that we can get the holes filled in once and for all. I think the holes have been filled in multiple times, but of course, since the pipe still has voids in it, the holes continue to come back. All that's to say, we put this out to bid. It came back on October 14th, and so essentially for this type of work, there's really kind of two big contractors in the area that I know of. This here was the only bid that we received. It was actually from Hair Construction. We had them bid it a couple different ways. We had them bid it as if they were going to replace the pipe totally. We had them bid it as if they would just line the pipe. So we had a camera inspection from a couple of years ago that Brian and his folks at GPSD were nice enough to do for us. Based on that camera inspection and what we saw in there, we're confident that we can successfully line the pipe. So that is what we have brought forward for you to consider here today. That's the recommendation in the resolution, would be to hire Hair Construction to reline the pipe. It's about 175 feet of pipe. It's a 15-inch pipe. And the lining process and steam curing process that they use puts a 50-year time frame on the pipe.
Questions? Lifespan, he has said, with this would be 50 years. That's super. And the material, when we were out the highway garage on Monday, Danny Kelch and I had a meeting on our budget and so forth, and Jeff brought in a piece of that material, and I would like to have him bring down a piece, but piece is about like this, and it's really heavy, and I was going to have him just show you, because I know when people see something, and I asked him in regard to how do they really apply this material, and he told me that Kyle has worked on 2 or 3 of these projects. Have you ever seen them actually apply this material to the pipes and so forth? Can you explain that to us?
Well, in a former lifetime, we have former utility that I used to work for. We have lined miles and miles of both sewer pipes and water mains. And so I've seen it done both ways. I've seen it done with the steam curing process. It's kind of a proprietary process, but I've seen it done with the steam system. I've seen it done with the UV system, but it's a very thick, it's a robust lining material. And then typically after the pipe is lined, they'll dig a hole at one end, insert the liner, and then dig a hole or let it come out into the manhole at the next end. But then they can send a robot through, and the robot will actually go and it'll cut coupons anywhere where there's a discharge into the pipe. So it's a pretty slick system. It's obviously, you can see the bids here. It's a lot cheaper than replacing the pipe itself. So it just allows your capital dollars to go a bit further. I should also mention that we did put some money in here for some manhole work as well. Again, that's kind of a maximum price. I don't think we are going to know how much the manhole needs until they actually get in there. But I suspect that will come in under the $8,000 that's built into this for the manhole. I think it just needs probably some grouting and some caulking work.
Any questions for Kyle? Vote. Motion is unanimous. Okay, we're up, Kyle, to the courthouse renovation and so forth. Need a motion on that. Motion by Betty, second by Jimmy.
So I believe this next thing before you is to consider a new cleaning contract.
I'm sorry, janitorial, sir. I'm sorry. Can we go back? Do we have to make a motion for janitorial? I skipped one. Too many for me to have. All right, we'll just take it out of order. Go ahead. Go ahead with the courtroom up in 321.
Gotcha. Okay, we will pivot. So this is courtroom staff had come to us several months ago, and I believe during your budgeting process at last year, $500,000 was put into the budget for the courtrooms or for the court facilities to use to upgrade, remodel one of their courtrooms or some of their courtrooms. I began working with Gabe and Jennifer in the courts department, and we began to have contracts with Dewberry as to what it would take to get what we were looking at for a budgetary number for a courthouse, for a courtroom renovation. What became clear pretty quickly is that since the last courtrooms were remodeled, which was approximately 10 years ago, of course, COVID and other things being as such in the world, the construction costs have escalated. So we came to the realization pretty quickly that the $500,000 that was in the budget for this year would not be enough to do what they felt like they needed to do to remodel courtroom 321. So there's an additional request for you all to consider during your budgeting process for fiscal year 2026. That $500,000 from 2025 would be moved forward, and then there would be an additional ask for 2026 for another $700,000, bringing the courtroom remodel total to $1.2 million. Now, having said that, there's obviously with the ramp up of the project and doing the engineering and the architecture work and drawing up documents, that all takes time. So what we have before you to consider today is a proposal from Dewberry in the amount of $100,500 to do that architecture work that would be needed to renovate courtroom 321 and its adjacent spaces, which would be hallways, jury deliberation room. There's some other kind of side functions that happen up in that space as well. So that's the proposal before you today, would be to contract with Dewberry to do this architecture work in advance of going out to for bid for construction for next season. Actually, I take that back. It wouldn't. This would nest under the contract that we currently have with Core Construction as our already awarded contract manager for all things at the courthouse. Really, they would then use these documents that Dewberry prepares to establish their guaranteed maximum price, and then of course they would have to go out bid to their subs for the work. So that's where we're at. Proposal today to begin the architecture services.
Question for anyone? See no question, vote. Voted unanimous. Our next one is the one that I skipped, and Kyle's going to be up on this too. Our janitorial service. Need a motion to get on the floor. Motion by Danny, seconded by Matt.
Okay, so the third and final thing that I'm bringing before you today is we went out to bid for janitorial services for the courthouse. This basically would include every building within our portfolio, minus the JDC. They do their cleaning work in-house, and minus HHS. HHS entered a contract approximately a year ago with PhD. So this includes all of their buildings: courthouse, highway, elections, PCAPS, jail. And so we went, put this out for bid. We received 6 bids back, and they ran the gamut from the totals of approximately $1.3 million to over $3 million. That was our high and our low. Then we had 4 bids that we received back that were more bunched in the middle, that ranged from 2.16 up to 2.7. So we felt good about those 4 bids being in such a tight bunch. We did. Melissa, Calvin, Jim Smith from purchasing, they did go through and complete a comprehensive scoring criterion, which I have here before me. At the end of that process, the recommendation was to move forward in a contract with PhD. And so that is the proposal that is before you. This would be a 2-year contract with the ability to extend it out to 5 years. So we got 5 years worth of pricing. We, our current cleaning provider, we have been in contract with since 2019. That expired a month or so ago. And so the idea would be for this new contract to start January 1st, 2026. So essentially the cleaning service that we have right now, we're operating on just a month-to-month basis until the end of, until such time that a new contract would begin.
Kyle, when you say you extend to a 5-year contract, now will those be an annual contract? In other words, would the extension be from like 3 to 4? Pardon me, 2 to 3, and then 3 to 4, and 4 to 5, or would it be a 3-year contract?
My understanding is that it would be year to year at that point.
Okay. Anybody else with a question or comment? Vote.
I do have a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Kyle, I apologize if I missed it in your report, but what disqualified the lower bidder?
The lower bid, there was some there were some issues with very inconsistent building by building prices, which really made us question as to whether they understood the scope or the magnitude of what it was that they were actually bidding on. There was not a high degree of confidence that they would be able to fulfill the contract to our expectations based on the submittals that they gave to us.
So it was inaccurate square footage counts and
Yeah, there were just there were some questions about their ability to staff up and manage a portfolio of this size.
okay, that makes sense. They're $1 million lower than anybody else. So that usually leaves a bidder wondering what he forgot.
Yeah, there were some real inconsistencies that made us question whether or not they could fulfill the contract to our expectations.
Anyone else with the question? Vote. Voted unanimous. Our last resolution, we have one that we have dealt with in the past, and that has to do with the engineer's salary and so forth. And need a motion to get this on the floor. Terry, second. Paul. Okay, Scott, you're going to handle this for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, as you alluded to, this is something that we've done for several years now. This is your one and only budget-related resolution on the agenda today. We are one of 81 counties in Illinois that participates in this program, where we're able to get reimbursed for 50% of the county engineer's salary on an annual basis through motor fuel tax. In exchange for that, IDOT tells us what the minimum annual salary for the county engineer will be for that year. In the agenda briefing, you can see that there are 5 different components that IDOT uses in a formula to determine our ranking and then what the salary will be. We are the 10th ranked county, which is in your packet in terms of where we align with the others. The top 3 counties, Cook, DuPage, and Lake, do not participate. So that makes us number 6 of those that do. And I am happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Questions for Scott? No questions? Vote. Motion is unanimous. Okay, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. And everybody want to take a stretch after going through 11 resolutions? That's the most we've had in quite a while. Okay, I'm sorry. I was informed by our legal counsel that I should call for public comment on.
We need to do the budget first before we do public comment.
Yeah, we got to do that. Yeah.
Oh, you adjourned. Okay.
I was adjourning the regular meeting.
Oh, and now you're going to go here.
No, I was going
Isn't it all part of- Okay.
Is that all right to do?
It's all part of the same meeting. You just.
Oh, it
it's
is.
fine. But
Okay.
it's for
Well, we did approve Marcy to call in. We only did it once. We only do it once. We'll call for both meetings. Is that all right? Okay, we're going to go into it and need a motion to discuss our budget for 26, and that is made by Betty Duncan and seconded by Sharon Williams. Thank you both. Scott.
Right, Mr. Chairman, Heather is going to run through a slide deck for you, and the clerk is going to change the display. To presenter display. Thank you. Oh, and
I've got to find my button. We're going to clarify that the motion to look at our budget will be all of them at one time. Okay. Is that how you want it, Betty? Okay.
No, it's to include the entire, instead of each line item S1 or 5152. So Megan, you'll probably need to change it in the vote because it's popping up as 51 as a vote, not the entire budget. Oh, okay. Okay.
We were just clarifying that your motion to discuss the budget was all together. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Administrator Sorrell.
yes,
This is not working for me.
no, just make sure it's turned on.
It is.
Oh.
I turned it off and back on again, but I'm not sure.
Well, I'll just stand up here.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Technical difficulties. Story of my life.
All right. Well, I'll just advance it manually. How's
Thank
that?
Okay, so today we're going to discuss specifically the infrastructure committee budget and the departments that report up through this committee. But we just wanted to start each committee off with one slide highlighting all of the budget for fiscal 26. So we have 64.2 million budgeted in the general fund with revenues and expenditures. Using about 1.2 million in reserves of the general fund to balance the budget. And then in all funds, $172.5 million, which includes interfund transfers for a balanced budget. And the total use of reserves is about a little over 18 million to balance the budget. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide is specific to the infrastructure committee and all of the departments and funds that roll up to this committee. And the revenues recommended for fiscal 26 are $35,571,707, and expenditures are $43,885,493. Let's see. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. This just shows the change in revenues and the revenue types over time, and expenditures below, highlighting personnel, interfund, debt service, commodities, contractuals, capital outlays, etc. Thank you. For sources overall, they increased $6.7 million or 23.4%. It's mainly due to transfers in. We have a plan to transfer in $3.5 million total between risk and the general fund for the jail master plan initial phase 1 and public facility sales taxes increasing, which is a good thing. And then increases in charges for services and property taxes are related to the source increases for this fiscal year. For uses, they decreased a bit, $1.4 million from FY25 was revised, and that is mainly due to the nature of the capital projects and outlays that we have planned for this year. Next slide, please. Staffing, there is a net increase of 0.04 FTE. There was an increase of 0.84 FTE in facilities, mainly due to labor allocation and the reallocation of 2 staff members, a portion of their salaries that were currently in the health department fund, and they are now going to be reporting to facilities, so that transfers from the health department FTE to facilities FTE. And then a decrease in a position in highway to reallocate the Director of Strategic Planning and Capital Projects and Deputy County Administrator labor for supervision of the highway department. So the net increase is 0.04. We thought it would be helpful to lay out all of the projects in the capital projects fund that are on the request for next year. And I just quickly want to go through the process of determining these projects. All departments are requested and have access to entering any capital project requests into the CIP software that we have called Planet. And we collect those projects along with those that facilities puts in as well. And then we prioritize and find funding sources that are available. So this is the list that the team came up with. The team consists of the county administrator, deputy county administrator, assistant county administrator, director of strategic projects and capital planning, the facilities manager, CFO, assistant CFO, and the budget analyst. I think I got everybody there. So this is the list for next year recommended. There's some things in the courthouse, Hannah City building demolition, a couple of projects at the highway, decommissioning the EMA bunker, final phase of the ring road at the jail, obviously the jail master plan implementation, which is the largest on that list, JDC, 3 projects there, and then the entrance at PCAPS, which was a result of the facilities assessment. And that's not just the only one. There were a lot of facilities covered under that facilities assessment. The next slide shows highway projects that are non-road or bridge related. They have plans to purchase a couple of tandems next year, do ADA compliance improvements, a PUAT study, road striping, and some other miscellaneous. Just so you know, they don't just do bridge and road, although that's the goal. Next slide. These are the bridge projects that are on schedule for fiscal 26. The largest being the Princeville Cemetery Bridge. And then finally, the road projects. The largest 2 are for Mossville Road resurfacing and phase 1 of Radnor Road. If you have questions on any of the departments within the budget book or anything in general, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Mr. Dillon?
Chairman Salzer, between Heather and Kyle, I think it'd be helpful to clear up some confusion that was maybe on the PCAPS entrance, that it's much more rounded for the facility than just the entrance, so, and the funding sources for those projects. So could Kyle touch on the project and maybe you touch on the funding sources so that we have that clarified?
A new entryway, really, I think was probably only a piece of the project. And so, and really what the new entryway is looking at, or I think what the goal of the PCAPS director is that right now there can be safety issues, there can be there's just issues with folks that are coming there perhaps to pay fines or retrieve an animal or settle that type of dispute, are intermixing with people that are there to potentially adopt an animal and move them out of the shelter. And so the resultant of having kind of those two disparate groups sharing the same space, there can be potential conflict. So again, that's one piece of it. But part of the WSP study looked at the building and the grounds and the facilities as a whole. So again, you're looking at MEP, so mechanical, electrical, plumbing type work, HVAC work, building facade type work. So again, it's a concrete structure. You're looking at some tuck pointing and some other various facade improvements. So again, perhaps a misnomer on our part, the way that is listed, but it was much more comprehensive look at the complete building itself. The entryway is undoubtedly a portion of that, though, to try and just make the building function more appropriately for the multiple uses that they have going on there.
Thank you, Kyle.
Kyle, enough follow-up question to that. Have we had problems with mixing those two groups in the same entry? Is there issues already?
I think from a day-to-day perspective, I think that might be a better question for the PCAPS director. But from what I've understood, it is an issue, and again, they're trying to prevent any future issues from continuing to happen or compounding.
And then, as a follow-up, do you have a ballpark? What portion of that $1 million is dedicated to the entryway versus all the other issues?
Yeah, again, these are real rough order of magnitude dollars based on some preliminary meetings and preliminary conversations that we've had with PJ Hare, which again, I mentioned previously when I was up here discussing this. Core is our construction manager for the courthouse facility, whereas PJ Hare is the construction manager for all of our other facilities. And so again, these figures are based partly on the WSP assessment, but then they're based also on some preliminary conversations that we have had with PJ Hare. I do think above all else, the health of the animals, and then also the safety and health of the folks that work there is paramount. So I do think throughout this process, at least initially, more attention is going to be paid to making sure we can get the structure of the building taken care of, shored up. Again, to the chairman's point that he made earlier, do required maintenance on it so that we don't run into bigger issues down the road with the building itself. And then also, a lot of attention will be paid to the HVAC units themselves, some of the ventilation systems. So again, the There are other, I think, bigger things that we need to make sure are taken care of first, and then I think that will allow us to back into redesigning a front entryway system that would fit within that budget. And whether that's, of course, there are some elaborate ideas, but again, I think that's all going to be predicated on the work that we can get done to actually make sure that the building is fortified for the future and the mechanicals are taken care of. And so the entryway, may really be value engineered down to just the bare minimum of trying to get the uses separated. But I think ultimately what people would like to see would be, more covered space, more conditioned space, and a reprogramming of some of those interior spaces to make it function a bit better for those two different use cases.
So while we've not detailed the breakdown of that amount, we have prioritized the maintenance, the safety, the MEP systems in the building above the entryway. So it's going to be what's left over can be dedicated to the entry. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's fair. That's how we plan to approach it.
Okay. Thank you.
Jim?
That's a fair description of the construction part, but then Heather to explain the financing part.
So for funding for the project, there has been a recent bequest to the Peoria County Animal Protection Services in the amount of $300,000, and we were also awarded a state capital grant for $250,000 that can be used towards this as well, for a total of $550,000. That was not information that was available when the budget book was created about a month ago.
So it's not going to cost us the full million?
Well, the project itself would still cost $1 million if that's what the board decided on. It's just the funding source would be shifted between the capital projects fund, so that would give a little relief to the capital projects fund, and then the other funding sources could be utilized if that's what the board decides.
So if I can ask one more question of Heather, the grants that you just talked about, were they included in the projected revenues for the overall budget?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Sharon?
I do have a question, and then I also have an amendment. So I start with the question. Scott, can you cover the jail master plan implementation and what that is going to cover, please?
Sure, happy to, Ms. Williams. So the recommendation is for $3.5 million in next year's budget. That'll be used as was written in the in the transmittal letter and other parts of the budget for pre-construction services. We'll retain through an RFP process a qualified architect and engineer, and then our construction manager as well. What they will do is they'll prepare the necessary plans for a number of scope items, and based on the policy discussions that the board has previously had, those scope items include a new attached kitchen, converting the existing kitchen into new laundry, significant mechanical, electrical, plumbing, MEP upgrades, improvements and replacements, and the central plant itself. And then lastly, the conversion of some some housing units or a housing unit, an exact number to be determined, but to a mental and behavioral health space that would be part of the medical unit. Because as we've talked and as we've heard from the sheriff, he does not have the capacity to treat the detainees that he has today that do have either a mental health diagnosis or a substance abuse diagnosis or both, where approximately 60% or more of the detainees in the jail have one or both of those diagnoses. So having a behavioral health space within the facility and in close proximity to the medical unit, if not attached to the medical unit, is really paramount for the sheriff. So we're going to look at all those scope items. We'll design those. We still continue to brainstorm ways to try and pay for the capital costs for actually then doing the construction work, but don't have anything yet that meets all of our goals and desires. But we're hopeful that we will come up with something. But at least by this time next year, we'll be close to having found a revenue source and having a line of sight, and therefore how to pay for those things, and be close to getting final pricing and a guaranteed maximum price.
Thank you for that. So do we want to make the amendment now, or do you want to just take additional questions and then we'll do the amendment?
Up to the chairman.
Up to you, Phil. Yeah, take questions and then I'll do the amendment after the questions.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, PCAPS was one, so really, realistically, the last thing is on the county motor fuel tax. I just want to make a comment about Glassford Phase 1. I know I talked to Paul, talked to Amy and Scott. Shame on me for not bringing it up last year as part of it. I know that last year when we did 600,000, that was a short-term solution. I guess I didn't realize we were going right into Phase 1, which it was budgeted partly last year and partly this year for Phase 1, which will be about 800-some thousand when it's all said and done. But having driven that road last week, we spent about 600,000 in asphalt, mill and overlay, and then on top, when we get into Glassford, there's actually sidewalks and some new ADA. The road's beautiful from what it was. I just thought priority-wise, and I know since Amy's explained federal funding, you have to have Phase 1. It's more expensive to basically get it shovel-ready, but that bought us some time on that, which is what it is, and I'm fine with it. But moving forward on that project per se, and I know I've mentioned to this Paul, I cannot support anything on that road project until we have a agreement in place with the city of Glassford, just like we have with city of Peoria, West Peoria, and others, that they would take over ownership of portions of that road. I think it's in part of the village running through there, and that's a fair assessment for them to take over the roads if we're required to have that same deal with other municipalities. So I know I've stated that in these meetings before. I stated that Amy and Jeff as my intention. But anything with that road, I would like to see an intergovernmental agreement in place, which could be a long time out before you get money for that road. But that is something we should also been looking, because that has been a priority of the board to, if you're in municipalities, to get rid of the roads that we have. So just wanted to clear that up.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'm not sure if it can be done or not, but can we stop the Phase 1 on Glassford Hill since we fixed it up and put that money towards Cameron Lane, because we haven't done anything for that? That road's hopefully would be good enough for 10 years. Amy and Jeff, I'm sure they know more about it. I haven't talked to them about it, but I was just wondering, instead of getting that ready, if we got the other part ready on Cameron Lane, then it would be closer to maybe getting that road fixed.
So we did, in follow-up conversation to that, we started the contract last year. So this was a two-year payment on phase one. So we've already started the contractor work on that. And I know Cameron, so we have Radner in here on phase one, and then Cameron is a priority at some point to try to figure that out as well. So there's no point in unwinding it because we've already started it.
One of our highway engineers had a comment. Jeff, I'll recognize you to make a comment if you wanted to.
I was going to say, in a meeting we had at the village talking about Master Grove, I did make the point to them that board most likely will be coming to them. Taking jurisdiction. They did say no or yes, but they know there is an agreement.
Perfect. That's huge. Kind of surprised.
Anyone else with a comment? Okay, you have the floor, Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, my amendment is to remove the $250,000 for Hannah City Work Camp that is in the capital budget. We're going to add $250,000 to the CIP 14. It's on page CIP 14. So if you want to look that up in the back, it's white. To the highway office improvements, which will bump it from $400,000 to $650,000. Additionally, we're going to add $500,000 for abatement and remediation to the buildings at Hannah City Work Camp, and that will come from the Solid Waste Management Fund.
Second by Dylan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott, do you want to give us an overview of that, please?
Happy to, Ms. Williams. The amendment that you proposed, we had recommended in the capital budget a couple of different projects. The first was year one of a multi-year project to start to remediate and abate and then demolish some of the buildings at Hannah City Work Camp, knowing that we would not be able to do that all in one fiscal year. We've broken it up into multiple fiscal years. This came out of your strategic planning retreat earlier this year. The first part of your motion would remove funding for that and shift that funding, the $250,000, into a project where we are going to we're recommending that we do an addition to the County Highway Department's main building out on Route 116 on the West Campus for the purposes of moving the ETSB offices across the parking lot from a building that was probably built in the late 50s, early 60s that originally was the dwelling for the Bellwood Nursing Home administrator at the time. So they would move into the highway admin building, and then we would demolish the house that they're currently occupying, thereby eliminating one roof of our inventory. This $250,000, the initial estimates from PJ Hare, again, budgetary discussion, not a lot of detail yet, similar to what we have with PCAPS. Had an estimate of $800,000, but that did not include demolition costs. Kyle, Melissa, Heather, and I talked about it this morning, and that number is probably light in terms of what that project really needs. ETSB brings $400,000 of their reserves to the project. If successful, this amendment would increase the total project allotment from $800,000, $400,000 from capital projects, $400,000 from ETSB, up to $1,050,000 with that extra $250,000 coming out of the capital projects fund. The other part of your amendment still deals with Hannah City Work Camp. You asked a question of whether or not we could use solid waste management funds to do that. We did some investigation hastily, and Becca looked at the regulations that she's responsible for, and we have a high confidence level that yes, if we use those dollars for abatement and any remediation that would be necessary pre-demolition, those dollars would be an eligible expense in that fund. And also the disposal, once demolition is complete, would also be an eligible expense. Looking at what the fund balance is in the solid waste management fund, we, based on your inquiry, we suggested $500,000 for FY26. Once the transfer station opens late winter, early spring, we'll start receiving revenue again in the solid waste management fund, and those dollars should start to recapitalize themselves through the revenue generated by the transfer station pretty quickly. And those revenues actually will escalate on an inflationary indicator on an annual basis. So we feel pretty confident that the dollars in solid waste management fund are first eligible. Second, that we've got a method to recapitalize those dollars, and in future fiscal years, we can then do the remainder of the work out there. And so if approved, we would structure a procurement for the abatement and remediation and removal of this is how much is budgeted, tell us how much we can do, whether that be 2 structures or 10 structures. We have over 30 structures on that property. So it definitely will be a multi-year process, and we'll see how far this can get us if the amendment is approved and if it's adopted in the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott, the ETSB building there that used to be the house that the manager for the Bellwood used to live in, is the building got good bones?
It needs a substantial amount of dewatering work. It needs a new roof.
But okay? I'm not. I think you forgot that I told you years ago. Why do we want to demolish it? Well, why don't we put it up for a bid to sell it and have somebody move it? There's some house movers around. Why should we pay to demolish something when somebody might be willing to pay us? If we got $5,000 or $10,000 and we didn't have to demolish it, they can pick it up, move it. Somebody can live in it. Maybe it'll be in Peoria County. We can get some tax revenue on it when they start paying property taxes. And we didn't have to pay to tear it down. All we got to do is fill in the hole. And I imagine Amy and Jeff have extra dirt if there's a hole there that when they do road projects, they could fill it in, and it would be a win-win situation all the way around. I've got no problem with Sharon's idea there, but it's I can't see, like I said, if it needs a new roof, let the next person put the roof on. But if we can do net zero and not have to pay anything, it's better, but possibly we can maybe make a few dollars for the county to use for other projects. Thank you.
Other comments? Jim?
Thanks, Chairman. I'm just appreciative of our conversation in strategic planning to address, to be realistic, the blight that has become Hannah City Work Camp. I mean, we've taken that over, state abandoned it and gave it up in 2003, gave possession to us in 2009, I believe. So here we are sitting on about 17 years. We ran the gamut of farming to repurposing it to everything, and that this is a budget that no longer is kicking the can down the road on that and addressing that. I know for the neighbors that have lived out there, I'm thinking it's gone from Paul's district to Matt's district. I think Sharon at one point had part of Hannah City as well. So this is a big deal for people that live out there and the neighbors, and this will put it back to farm field, which will then allow us to either sell it, cash rent it, or develop it into something else and turning it back into an asset for the county instead of a liability that has been sitting out there that's just asking for trouble. So this budget does not kick that down the road anymore to make it somebody else's problem. We're going to address it. So I am appreciative of the board moving in that direction.
Anyone else with comments? No more discussion on Sharon's amendment? All right. We will vote on amending our, as presented, infrastructure for 25, and we will add to it the amendment by Sharon Williams. We're voting on the amendment. Vote. You can vote on your. Can you vote on your machine? Okay. I'm gonna have to look real close because.
Yeah, it's showing.
Members Williams, Rosenbaum, and McCann, please vote. Marcia, you might need to refresh the app.
Hard to count. Unanimous, so it carries. Yes, Jim.
Thank you, Member Salzer. I have another amendment to issue into the budget for clarification for everybody so that we don't miss this. And Administrator Sorrell or CFO McCord can discuss further for the questions. But this is for clarity and so that everybody straightforward of how we're paying for this and budget and items and no surprises. So we talked about the development on Kickapoo Edwards Blacktop. And there's going to be some extensive safety improvements and some curb and gutter that need to be done on civil defense. So want to have it clearly spelled out in the budget. And in initial conversations, that would be a letting that we let, and then have a reimbursement agreement with the developer if that project moves forward, which for anybody that's been out there lately, they have been issued permits and have started some work. So it's 600,000 in ARPA entrance amendment, 350,000 in county highway funds, and 250,000 in matching tax funds. We would then get a 600,000. That's 1.2 million. That we would get a $600,000 reimbursement from the developer that would make highway and matching tax whole. And both of these, with those drawdowns, does still keep us with a fund reserve balance in the 40 and 37% to each fund. So this is not outside of spend down below our fund levels, but this is a clear amendment that shows a funding source for when that project comes to the board, which would make that 3 lanes. A lot of this is safety improvements coming through there. And then the civil defense road would become a concrete road with actual curb and gutter on that development road. So just wanted to have clarity for everybody in the budget.
Need a second? Second by Danny Kelch. Discussion?
Did I miss anything, Administrator?
So for the benefit of the committee, Mr. Chairman, the board recently approved a rezoning related to this project. You're actually going to have here sometime yet this winter a special use before you for consideration, and then the development agreement that will outline in writing what Mr. Dillon just shared with the committee, that being the funding mechanism and the improvements that would be made. Most of the design engineering is actually complete or nearly complete. And then we would intend to have this let so that we could start construction in the spring on improvements to both Civil Defense Road and Kickapoo Edwards Road. And then the developer is looking to break ground on private property in the spring as well. So everything goes according to plan. We should, by the end of next year, or this time a year from now, have those safety improvements complete, whatever road work complete, the private development complete and open for business, and the county reimbursed for the developer's share of the project cost.
Any questions? On Jim Dillon's amendment, please vote. The vote is 8-1. Oh, is that an abstention? You know what? I'm colorblind. We have 8 yes, and Terry Rowland abstains from voting. I'm not going to ask him his reasons. Okay. I think the only thing we got left, if there's no more questions about the budget, is to vote on the budget as amended, and we will then be finished with the meeting. Anybody with any questions? I need a motion on that to vote on the amendment, vote on the entire budget. Yeah, you're right. I did. And then they amended. Okay. Vote. I say everybody vote. So Terry's the only one that is abstaining. Yeah. Motion passes with 1 abstention. Okay. Anything for good and welfare? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.